invention of this terrifying race once brought fear to all Deathless runners. Guardians and Mutalists only, they said. But now we can rest easy as Ace has developed innovative strategies to reclaim their homeworld of Char.
Back in November, I was watching Grant play StarCraft 1 Deathless and thought, I've played the Brood War Zerg campaign once or twice, I think I can help. I ended up completing the entire campaign without losing a unit, so why not make a video out of it?
One eternity later.
Okay, cool, that didn't take too long. What won't take long is Vile Disruption, a fast no-build mission to start the campaign. 7 hives fall under attack across the map, and I have to defend each of them from 2 waves of enemies. Because it's a no-build mission, I can only use what I'm given when I rescue each hive. Thankfully, the game is kind enough to start me with 6 Hunter Killers, who are elite Hydralisks with double the stats of a regular Hydra and the ability to beat most of the mission alone. They crush through the attackers at the first 3 hives with little resistance. The 4th hive has 5 Guardians attacking, which is a big step up from the previous ground forces. Their long range and high damage will kill even my Hunter Killers before I can get in range to take them out. In order to beat them, I'm going to have to take advantage of the StarCraft 1 AI, something that will be done frequently throughout this campaign. After the Guardians kill the sunken colony on the high ground, they're given the attack command to attack the base. Since they're told to attack the base, they won't target any of my units until they get to their destination, letting me easily run up to them and shoot them with my Hunter Killers. The second attack wave on the 4th hive comes from 2 directions. I move all of my forces up to the north to split up the attackers and engage the wave early, drastically reducing the threat to any of the new defenders I rescue. The remaining attack wave is then much easier to eliminate. Between the 5th and 6th hives are a few Ultralisks that are supposed to be killed by queens with Spawn Broodling. This ability would kill the Ultralisks in one shot, but would leave me with 2 timed life Broodlings that die quickly, and that would ruin the run, so I have to avoid it. Instead, I pick off the first 2 by pulling them away from the group, then dive the remaining Ultralisks and attack them while they're distracted by chewing on a sunken colony. The last hive spawns a whole bunch of units when you rescue it, but the 6 Hunter Killers are most important. My now full control group of Hunter Killers rip through the remaining enemies and easily win the mission. Continuing with the theme of heroic Zerg units is Reign of Fire, the first macro mission of the run, although I don't plan to do much macroing here. Manx delivers me an SCV holding a psi emitter that can be brought near Zerg units around the map to adopt them. The goal is to befriend all of the Zerg on Braxis and then use them to destroy the psi disruptor. I start off by rescuing 2 drones, turning one into a hatchery, and then when that one pops, I build another.
Never use your last drone to make a building.
Dagoth, aren't you busy being an overmind under UED control? Anyway, I have Zerglings in my main base, but I don't want to take them in just yet in order to keep my supply lower during the start of the mission. Right outside of the base, I find 3 Hunter Killers, and just past the bunker up ahead are the bestest boys, devouring ones, heroic Zerglings that make my Zerg heart very happy. I use my newly rescued devouring ones to chew apart a siege tank at record speed and dismantle a bunker in kind, and I'm rewarded with 3 more Hunter Killers. There's another outpost identical to this on the far left of the map, and it goes down just as quickly. This gives me access to the Tarask, a super powerful Ultralisk who enjoys Marines as a light snack. The Terran base that protects the psi disruptor is a fortress, with only 1 entrance ramp defended by multiple tanks, bunkers, and turrets, making it extremely hard to crack. I'm going to avoid it, and after getting a Spire and Overlord drops, I use Mutalisks to secure a landing zone for my Tarask and 6 Hunter Killers. They clear out the Marines around the area so the Mutalisks can freely snipe a tank on the high ground. With that tank out of the way, the Tarask and Hunter Killers are uncontested to destroy the psi disruptor. Wrapping up the intro missions is the Kel'Morian Combine. I don't get heroic Zerg units this time, but instead I get Phoenix, a great warrior who will surely live a long and glorious life. He and his 2 pet Zerglings make short work of the units in the starting base, and I set up my main hatchery there. I also have him escort a drone up to the high ground where I can take a second base. The objective of the mission is to either mine 10,000 minerals or destroy 5 Terran command centers. One of those involves direct combat, putting our precious Zerg in harm's way, and the other involves defensive structures that aren't units. On top of it all, the option to infest command centers is completely useless because, infested Terrans. They go boom. With that in mind, I grab a spawning pool for sunken colonies, an evolution chamber for spore colonies, and then sit around with my units, deflecting attacks until I reach 10,000 minerals. Once I get there, the mission ends. Yay! The Liberation of Korhal is the first of the mega macro missions, and I live for these missions. They're my favorite missions in all of StarCraft. Huge armies, tons of hatcheries for production, and massive room for skill expression. These missions involve a huge swarming army, crushing enemies through sheer numbers, and constantly attacking and replacing units, and these missions are why I speedrun the campaign. This isn't a speedrun though, and instead of using Mass Hydra Ling, I'm going to opt for Ultralisks here. These chunky boys are excellent for taking down medium defenses due to their additional armor and move speed upgrades they get in Brood War. The middle blue Terran enemy sports decent defenses, but they are so not ready for a dozen Ultralisks running at them. The big boys clean through the blue base, and I establish a staging ground at the only choke point to the Zerg main base. This is because at the 25-minute mark, the Queens in the Zerg base gain access to Spawn Broodling, instantly turning my large Zerglings into a large sigh and a loading screen. However, the Queen's spellcasting AI has a condition that I can use to my advantage. Queens will use Spawn Broodling on a target unless they are intercepted before their deceleration to cast the spell begins, in which case they'll use Ensnare on a valid target instead. This means that a pack of Mutalisks and some Spore colonies can divert the Queens from their assassination mission, sparing the run. However, this does very little to help me push into the base with anything other than flyers. Even though the Queens can't spawn Broodling my flyers, Ensnare still causes my Mutalisks to be unable to escape Scourge raids and results in reloads. Adding Guardians to the mix and improving my Mutalisk control against the Queens and Scourge allows for slow but steady progress. Once the Queens are dead and the defenses are softened up, the Ultralisks can be released onto the Zerg to mop up the remaining units. The Terrans that remain don't have spawn Broodling, so they're much less of an issue to take out. After picking off a high ground siege tank with mutas and killing the only battlecruiser by baiting it with Hydralisks, my Ultras are able to take a flank route to the right side of the Terran base, chew up some tanks, and eat the rest of the base for dessert. There's just something very satisfying about picking off the right amount of defenders and then unleashing the Ultralisks on the enemy. True Colors is a very similar mission to the previous one, where there are two factions of enemies to completely wipe off the map to achieve victory. The catch here is that I have 6 Blizzard minutes of free attacking where the enemy will only retaliate with the units that are attacked, allowing me to get significant damage done early. The speedrun route kills 2 Terran bases and a Protoss base, and I've practiced it a lot. I start by moving 3 Hydras to the first Protoss base. Once they're queued to attack, they can destroy the entire base without any additional inputs. On the left side, I can actually use Zerglings to nibble on some of the bunkers and production structures, while my Lurkers and Hydras exploit vulnerabilities in the second base. Priority number 1 is sniping the only comsat station that makes Kaz with one well-placed Lurker. This is critical to allow my Lurkers to destroy attacks thrown at me in the future. The other Lurkers pair up to take out turrets and bunkers without taking too much damage in return. Hydras are targeted onto buildings and units that I want eliminated before the timer runs out. As the sneak attack timer gets low, I move all of my Lurkers to the bridge to create a defense that is practically impossible for the AI to defeat. Once the timer runs out, both of the enemies will counterattack me with substantial armies. The bridge Lurkers annihilate the Protoss attack, and the Terran one that hits my main base fares no better, leaving me free to build up my attacking army. While planning my push against the Protoss, I remember a unit that I definitely could have used last mission, Defilers. I just kinda forgot they existed last mission since I never make it up the tech tree on a regular playthrough. Defilers have the strongest spell in the game in Dark Swarm, a spell that protects any units under its cloud from range damage with a few exceptions. This ability is so powerful that it defines Zerg gameplay in every matchup and makes the squishy Hydralisk viable in Deathless. After building an entire control group of these overpowered monsters, I blot out the sun with Dark Swarms and push in with my Ultras and Hydras. The Protoss main breaks quickly as the Ultralisks once again run over the base and chew apart everything except their starships, which the Hydralisks gladly spit at. Phoenix receives one group hug and falls over dead, and apparently Jim takes offense to my show of friendship. I may not be friends with Jim, but I am friends with the Defiler. Once again, I have just the Terran base between me and victory. There are only 2 bridges that lead to the base, and this base is occupied by Mengsk, the largest siege tank enthusiast in the entire campaign. I tried running in with Ultralisks like I did last mission, but Minsk has a new tool to cause me suffering. Science vessels begin irradiating my Defilers and Ultralisks, which forces me into an air composition because the AI won't irradiate them as often. I start poking in with Guardians, but the cloaked Wraiths of all things are a problem. I can't bring Overlords in to detect them because they too will get irradiated and killed by the science vessels. This makes Plague my only reliable detection in this instance, so I have to plague each laser mosquito before swatting it out of the sky. This was not what I was expecting when I built the Defiler, but it works, so I guess I'll take it. With the Wraiths dealt with, Guardians can easily remove the tanks from the base and allow my Hydralisks to hide under more clouds and reassign Duke to the Theta Squadron. Fury of the Swarm is a level 1 talent for Kerrigan that gives 10% more shields from attacks and allows her attacks to splash. Fury of the Swarm is the 6th mission in the Brood War campaign, where I start the mission immediately under attack at the bottom base. The Hydralisks there will die in a matter of seconds, so I have to evacuate as soon as the mission starts. Once they're no longer being threatened, I have to scramble to clear out my Defenders and Overlords from the other 3 bases that will fall under attack shortly. I rally the Overlords to my main and group up all of the Zerglings from the northern 2 bases. While I'm doing that, I'm able to build a sneaky drone from the rear base up north. Back on the south side, I take all of my units and hide them in a corner of the base. They will survive, and the enemy attack will despawn and remove itself as a threat. After the initial attack passes the northern base, I use a speedrunning trick to take it back. If I aggro the lurkers and run out of range, they unburrow, which allows me to kill them while they're offenseless. I can then retake the top base and double up my gas income early. The objective of the mission is to kill 30 UED scientists, a number that is distinctly not 25. One of the hypothetical speedrun strats is to stack a control group of Mutalisks up and snipe out every individual scientist in the Terran base. While this requires inhumanly perfect control to do faster than existing strategies, it can also be done safely but slowly, making it viable for Deathless. I build up more than 2 control groups of Mutalisks and start chipping away at the perimeter defenses. When a Mutalisk takes too much damage, it goes home, heals up at the Mutalisk Infirmary, and a healthy one takes its place in the control group. With this cycling in and out of 2 control groups, I'm able to keep the pressure on and make gains each time I go in. Once I secure a small section of the Terran base, I fly in a drone and drop a hatchery to create a safe location for the Mutalisks to draw enemies into. The Sunkens rip apart the defending Marines and Hydralisks, reducing the amount of damage my mutas trade out and speeding up the clearing process. Speed is important here. The Zerg attack waves are brutal, with Scourge, Guardians, Defilers, and Lurkers all attacking at regular intervals. Each attack is a huge danger to my defenders, and dealing with as few of these waves as possible reduces the chance I miss a unit die while I'm controlling my Mutalisks. After enough defenders are eliminated and there's downtime in the attack waves, a group of Mutalisks dive into the main base, eliminating the scientists that dot the periphery of it. Another attack wave hits, forcing the Mutalisks to retreat. But finally, I'm able to group up all 24 Mutalisks and dive the heart of the Terran base, clear out the scientists, and win the mission. Being able to do my best Jaedong impression by stacking and cycling mutas to beat this mission was super satisfying, and it always feels like a high-effort victory. Drawing of the Web marks a break in the huge macro missions that this campaign is known for. In order to win, I have to bring Duran to 5 beacons scattered around the map in a star formation. The gimmick of the mission is that no air units or drops may be used, locking us out of the reliable flyers that have helped us in the previous trio of missions. Additionally, to avoid any rules complications, I'm going to be on a timer. The Dark Archons on this mission gain mind control around the 12-minute mark, so I need to have the mission completed by then. With this time limit in place, I dig into the speedrun bag of tricks to start claiming beacons immediately. The far northeast base is defended by Reavers, Archons, and Dark Templar, and is easily the most terrifying one to push into. However, I can lock down 2 key Reavers and can slide Duran on and off the beacon before he takes too much damage. This trick is precise. Lockdown has the exact same range as a Reaver attack, and the Reaver just barely didn't get to spin around in time to attack me. The second beacon has a forward cannon that I have to sneak Duran around in order to access the beacon. I have to take a few cannon shots as I pass by it, but the trade is worth it. Duran is a Zerg unit, not a Terran ghost, so he will heal up slowly over time while I work on my tech. None of the remaining beacons can be captured quite as easily as the first two, so while Duran has been on his Mission Impossible, I've been teching up to a hive and then throw down a Defiler mound. Attacks hit hard in this mission, and I need to wait for all of my newly hatched Defilers to gain energy, so I prepare some static defenses back at home to thwart the various waves of enemies. Once the Defilers have had their coffee, they and Duran move towards the third beacon. The cannons cover this beacon much better than the previous two, making a sneaky operation useless. Instead, I create a Dark Swarm highway directly to the beacon and move Duran in. The Zealots do light damage, and I'm able to get on and off the beacon quickly without getting body blocked to death. The next location to pass is the bottom left outpost, and it's the hardest part to sneak past. A well-positioned cannon and Dark Templar create a really nasty choke point to push through. I use the rarely known fact that Duran has a weapon to take down one of the cannons. After that, it's time for the mad dash. Duran's higher attack priority will make sure that the DTs chase him instead of focusing down my Defilers, and that allows me to get 4 Defilers through to the other side of the base. The fourth beacon ramp goes much like the third. Defilers create a covered path, and Duran takes it all the way to the beacon. This time, Duran travels alone towards the final beacon, taking fire as he moves north. He needs to have at least 110 health to safely take the route to the last beacon. With time ticking closer to the soft time limit, I brave the oncoming cannon fire and bring Duran onto the 5th beacon. With a little bit of StarCraft 1 trigger trickery, I'm able to get to the invincibility trigger with exactly 1 more health than I needed. Duran tends to his wounds while watching Talametris turn into a fireworks show. Remember Mission 4 with the Terran Zerg bases that took an hour to push through? It's time to face that same pairing of UED forces again while they have full access to the tech tree. To slay the beast has a simple objective: use a Dark Templar to kill the Overmind. The quest, though, is anything but simple. The defenses on this map are considered by many to be the strongest of any base in all of StarCraft. Air units struggle to contend with Scourge and Valkyrie Devourer combos. Yamato Cannon, once unlocked, will one-shot any air unit I throw at the enemy. Queens will spawn Broodlings almost every ground unit. When all of the straightforward options seem unfavorable, it's time to break out the finely aged cheese. 2 years ago to the exact date of the gameplay recording, Grant and I were experimenting with speedrun routes on this mission. While we are unsuccessful at creating a faster route, we happened to cook up a strat that has Deathless written all over it. Introducing Defiler Chain Plague. The Overmind has 2500 health, and a Plague does 300 damage over 25 seconds. If I can drop 9 Plagues on the Overmind, I can walk the DT in and kill it in a single swing. It's just that simple, right? Well, kinda. I start off by fortifying my base with Sunken Spores and a group of Mutalisks to be a rapid response team. The attacks on this mission get absolutely crazy, so I need to be very well defended. And they'll be key for sniping Guardians and Siege tanks that outrange my static defense. Once I tech up and build 12 Lurkers and 12 Defilers, I fly them and my starting 2 Dark Templar to a landable corner in the bottom right of the Overmind's island. I use a few Guardians to clear a landing zone for the Lurkers, then lay down a Dark Swarm to give them cover. Dark Swarm covers ground units from attack damage but not splash. Being burrowed protects units from being splashed, so the combination of the two results in true ranged immunity, and the 12 Lurkers here will destroy any melee units that walk near. These Lurkers will have to be chain Dark Swarmed with no gap in coverage every 35 seconds for the rest of the mission. This creates an effect that is similar to the invincible drone glitch strategies that certain old speedruns used to do. The Lurkers will draw aggro for the Defilers so they can push up along the edge of the map and land Plagues on the Overmind. Due to the Metasynaptic Node upgrade, each Defiler has 250 energy, which is exactly enough to cast a Dark Swarm to cover its journey to the Overmind and drop a Plague on it. After the Plague goes off, the Defiler draws aggro of the units in the area, so it has to make a dash back to the Lurkers for protection. Plagues 1 to 4 go off without issue, but as the attacks in my main ramp up, I end up losing my Templar archives while I was going for a Plague, removing my ability to make any more Dark Templar. As long as I don't lose the 2 Dark Templar I have now, I won't lose the mission. Plague 5 drops the Overmind below half health, and this cycling of defilers seems to be working well. However, this whole process is taking a lot of time, and the attack waves are brutal. Both the orange and white players attack in great force, and I'm in no position to handle them. The only hope I have is that the static defense at home can last long enough until I can land the plagues to cripple the overmind. Sometimes the attacks hit my lurker defiler bunker, and I have to reset. Sometimes the attacks take a different angle and kills an overlord, and I have to reset. Sometimes I rush too much and I lose a defiler or forget to dark swarm the lurkers, and I have to reset. The final 3 plagues took as long in real time as the first 6, but I'm finally able to drop the overmind to a single point of health. I bring in the 2 starting Dark Templar, cover them with a final Dark Swarm, and slice the overmind in half to complete this insane mission. My reaction says it all. Whoa! We did it! Deathless Mission 8. The Reckoning is one of my favorite missions to execute during the speedrun, and I'm going to modify the idea of that route and use it as the basis for my strategy here. I have 30 fake minutes to defeat the Protoss who are positioned on the opposite side of the map, and I start with every tech structure in the game, so it's just a matter of picking which units to build and get upgrades for. Just like the speedrun, I start by getting Overlord drops. After the research finishes, I grab a drone and use it to proxy a hatchery in the back of the Protoss base, then connect it to my main with a Nidus canal. Lurkers are going to be the unit of choice here to avoid aggroing the air units who would otherwise attack me if I used Guardians. I grab my Lurkers, Defilers, and starting units, and use the Nidus to get set up just outside the base. The same goals and dangers apply here as with the speedrun route. There are 3 Reavers that must be killed, which are the only major threat to my Lurkers. They have to be taken out quickly and carefully as soon as they show up. With the Lurkers set up, I Dark Swarm them and start attacking to poke the Protoss Hornet's Nest. The first wave of units show up with a Reaver, so I have to engage my plan to take them out. The Guardians I start with poke at them while the Ultralisk sponges the Reaver shots. In order to reduce the damage that the Ultra takes, I move it away from the Scarab shot as it hits, cutting the damage in half. After a few nifty dodges, the Reaver dies. The Protoss defenders are aggressive and require perfect micro to beat, so I die a lot. However, I learn with each reset and eventually perfect the defense to kill all 3 Reavers with the Guardian Ultralisk micro combination. At this point, taking out the capital ships is easy, so I set up an aggressive Dark Swarm, move the Lurkers to cover, and shoot the carrier down with the Hydralisks. The rest of the Protoss falls, and with well over 5 minutes on the clock, I unlock the bonus mission. The penultimate mission gives us Zeratul and 4 Dark Archons landing on some ice planet due to their 2 Dragoon pilots' bad pathfinding. I have to bring Zeratul to the final beacon using the Dark Archon's mind control ability to slowly build up an army and use it to break the compound's layers of defenses. I ditch my 2 drunken pilots and move Zeratul to slice some Marines in half while mind controlling 2 siege tanks. The cloaked attack from Zeratul makes the AI respond by sending a science vessel to my location, which is a surprise tool that will help us now. I steal it with my 3rd Dark Archon and use the Defense Matrix ability on Zeratul and the final Dark Archon. With the extra 250 health shield, I'm able to run them past the first layer of defenses and stage them next to a cliff. Conveniently, the public transit dropship was on time today, and I'm able to take it for my own needs. Zeratul loads up into the dropship and is brought to the far right side of the map. I fly over the cliff and deep into the back of the base, then drop Zeratul out to draw aggro from my very damaged transport. I walk him to the beacon to speedrun the mission in under 100 seconds. Easiest mission of the run. I always knew Protoss was the easiest race to play. The final mission of the campaign is the infamous Omega, and I'll need every strategy I've used in this run to beat it. No holding back, no cheeses, every unit on the board. I start on a moderately sized platform in the middle of the map with 3 attack paths and 3 corresponding enemies: the UED, the Protoss, and Mengsk. The enemies attack nearly in unison and with increasingly scary attack waves that eventually include capital ships, Dark Archons, and science vessels with Irradiate. With all of the knowledge of attacks and routes that I have, I opt to attack the UED Terran to the north first. Their air attacks are scary, and knocking them out before their science vessels get Irradiate is priority number 1. A sizable ground army should be able to break their relatively strong anti-air defenses. However, before the army comes the macro. After defending the attacks that hit just after the 2-minute mark, I expand to the unclaimed base just to the south of my main and double up my gas income. A large Zergling cavern and defiler mound round out my starting infrastructure, and I take my third base after defending another round of attacks at the 8-minute mark. This base will be my staging point for the attack against the UED as I build up the 12 Ultras, Hydras, and 3 defilers needed for the push. There are a lot of battlecruisers defending the base from the start, and my controllably low Hydra count will have to take them all out. Dark Swarm once again turns a mediocre army into an unkillable death force, and these Hydras kill 4 Wraiths, 7 battlecruisers, and random ground units while hunkering down under the Dark Swarm for 3 minutes. After the Hydras remove the air defenses, the Ultras can run in and tear apart the buildings both at the main base and at the outpost base for the UED. They find little resistance left in either base, and the UED are eliminated before they can become a super threat.
I am prepared to offer terms of surrender.
While this attack was going on, I banked up a lot of money and then turned it into a large Mutalisk flock, which became a set of Guardians. Minsk has the strongest ground defenses in the entire campaign, and an hour of attempts with a ground army all ended in failure. After a bit of trial and error while attacking him, I found that Devourers were necessary to prevent Wraiths from cloaking and ending my career. Similar to True Colors, Overlords can't be used as detectors because the science vessels will irradiate them, so the lingering acid spores revealing the Wraiths will have to do. This was a really neat interaction that made even this meme tier anti-air unit the best solution in this case. The set of Guardians and Devourers pushes to the southern base to limit attack angles, slowly cleaning through the myriad of reinforcements being brought to the area via ground path and dropship. After a few resets, I opted for a second set of Guardians for clear speed. This helps me clear much faster and reduces the execution required to micro one group. With 24 space crabs, I blast through the pathetic air defenses and claim my victory over Minsk.
Congratulations, Kerrigan. You've beaten me again.
To conclude this campaign, we have the Protoss. Because they're last, they have every spell and tech in the game unlocked, and they use everyone to make my life as difficult as possible. Mind Control results in a swift reset if it's used on an army unit, Maelstrom stuns my clump flying army and leaves it vulnerable, and Stasis cuts my unit count in half. Then worse, it ruins my control group setup when it expires. Devourers return to being garbage anti-air and consistently leave my Guardians exposed when as many as 2 whole scouts attack. After a few tries, I'm able to intercept the Dark Archon before its spells land and correctly kite the attacking air units. Just like every base in StarCraft 1, once the front-loaded defenders go down, the base falls shortly afterwards.
Savor this victory, Kerrigan.
And savor it I will.
The remention of this terrifying race once brought fear to all Deathless runners, Guardians, and Mutalists only. They say, but now we can rest easy as Ace has developed innovative strategies to reclaim their home world of Chair.